A temporary ceasefire, or as many say, a freeze on the conflict is unacceptable, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said on February 6. According to her, the West could use a potential temporary suspension of hostilities to strengthen Ukraine's military potential and attempt armed military revenge. Zakharova noted that Russia needs reliable, legally binding agreements and mechanisms that would guarantee that the crisis will not recur. Earlier that day, Bloomberg reported that U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, would present the head of state's plan to resolve the conflict at the Munich Security Conference. According to the agency, a potential freeze on the conflict is one of the possible options. The conference will take place from February 14 to 16. Before that, on February 4, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that the alliance had prepared a secret tactic for negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Ukraine. At the same time, he added that the West should provide Kyiv with the best possible position by providing it with weapons and training Ukrainian soldiers. The last round of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine took place on March 29, 2022, in Istanbul. They lasted about 3 hours. Later, Kyiv officially refused to contact Moscow. On October 4, 2022, the Ukrainian president put into effect the decision of the National Security and Defense Council of the country on the impossibility of holding negotiations with Putin. The head of the French Ministry of Defense, Sébastien Lecornu, said that the first French Mirage fighters had arrived in Ukraine. This is another action that, unfortunately, drives the situation into an even greater impasse for the West and for the Kyiv regime, Zakharova said at the same briefing. According to her, the enfant terrible in the form of Vladimir Zelensky and his regime, which the West created with its own hands, requires more and more investment of money and weapons, realizing the impasse of the situation. And the West periodically throws him funding and new weapons while making new encouraging statements. Let us recall that in June 2024, French President Emmanuel Macron announced that Paris would transfer Mirage 2000 fighters to Kyiv and would organize training for Ukrainian pilots by the end of the year. Russia believes that arms supplies to Ukraine hinder the settlement and directly involve NATO countries in the conflict. It is time for the West to understand that it has received nothing from supporting Ukraine, except for the destroyed economies of a number of the largest EU countries and the disruption of logistics chains in the world. Everyone understands that, in essence, they created such a killer, the Kiev regime, equipped it to the brim, literally, either to the brim or already over the brim. And apart from the destruction of Ukraine itself by the hands of this Kiev regime, in fact they did not receive anything they were looking for. Well, if you don't take into account the destroyed economy of some countries, leading countries of the European Union, the destroyed global logistics chains, if you don't take into account the blow to the same development, global development, which they talk about all the time. As the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry noted, it is high time for officials in the West to acknowledge the damage caused, since their public and journalists are increasingly talking about it.